Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we're going to discuss one key concepts of Protobuff using which LinkedIn was able to reduce their latency by 60%, right? As LinkedIn is, it's a popularly widely used application. They receive billions of requests daily, right, in their application. So it's quite important for them to have a good UX and have minimal latency in their application so that the users that are using their app, the professionals, the students, the job seekers, okay, they need to ensure that they have a smooth experience, and if they're browsing or switching between the tabs, switching between the pages, the experience has to be top notch and smooth, right? But as the application scaled, as LinkedIn scaled, they experienced some network latency because they're using JSON for the data serialization needs, right? What do you mean by data serialization? That we are going to discuss in a while. So what they did, they decided to use Protobuff, okay, which is a data serialization technique designed by Google. In today's video, we are going to explore the entire thing, entire technical details, how they were able to achieve that. Basically, we have divided the entire video into 4 parts. So in the first part, we'll discuss what is data serialization. Next, we'll discuss what is Protobuff and how to use it using code examples. Then we'll see why Protobuff is better than JSON. And we'll see what are the challenges in JSON and why Protobuff was better for LinkedIn. In the end, we'll discuss what you need actually, whether you need JSON or Protobuff. So these are the 5 topics, okay, that we are going to cover today in this video. So first, let's start with the first topic. What do you mean by data serialization? Just imagine there are a couple of people in a gathering or in a meeting, but all of them speak different languages, right? So in order to communicate with each other, they either have to use a translator or they need to, they need to learn the other's language, right? That's how the data serialization works. When there are different type of services, they're built upon different tech stack, right? For example, your front end could be in JavaScript, your back end could be in Java, Python, right? So when you want to exchange data between these servers or between this application across the network, or you want to store the data in a database or store the data in a disk, so you need to have some kind of serialization and deserialization technique. So in plain term, data serialization is a technique or mechanism to convert data into a format, okay, that can be easily shared or transmitted across the network, right? So there are two components involved in a data serialization. Basically, the first one is a serializer, which converts the data object into a sequence of bytes or characters, right? And once the data is shared across the network to another destination, and the destination should have a deserializer which will do the reverse process, right? It will convert the bytes or the characters back to the original data object. So that is about the data serialization. Now, if you discuss about Protobuff, Protobuff is a mechanism developed by Google to access data across network, which is faster, simpler, and it supports multiple languages, obviously. So Protobuff is basically designed for high performance and efficiency in data exchange. Let's see a code example first. Okay, how do we create our Protobuff schema first? For that, you need to first install, the Protobuf compiler. So if you have Linux, you can install it directly using this. In Windows, you can install like this. For Mac, I'm installing using this brew install Protobuf. As soon as this is installed, and you do protoc version, you'll see that Protobuf is installed in your application, right? Now, in order to define a schema, right? Schema, let's say you have a user object or you have a person's object. So you can see the code examples. This is the code example to create a for a person struct. Okay, we have created like person, and it has name, it has age, and it has email of string, right? I mean, repeated is used for defining list of emails. So emails is a list of 3 strings. Just defining the schema is not enough. In order to use that for your data serialization and deserialization, you need to convert it to a Protobuf code or source file, right? Which you can actually use for your serialization needs. Let's assume you have a backend server running in Python, okay, for that, and front-end server running in React. So your client is running in React or a backend is running in Python. So you need to generate 2 source files, one for React and one for Python, and then you can use those source files in your code. Let's see how can you do that. You need to run this command protoc python out dot person proto. Okay, so what it will do, it will generate a file like this person underscore pb2.py. Okay, we don't need to get into the details of this code file. So this is just a Protobuf file that it generates. You can actually import that file, okay, in your Python code. Let's say this is your server side code. You can actually import that person.pb2 file. You can actually import that generated Protobuf class into your Python server, okay, and you start using like this, okay. You can actually define the properties like this. You can have the name, as emails, as you can see in the code, and then you can serialize using the serialize to string method, right? As you have assumed that your Python is acting as a server, so you need to deserialize, right? You can actually deserialize using parts from string method. Okay. Now, how do you serialize the data into a binary data in React.js? That we'll see. So for that, what you will have to do, you need to run this command. It will generate a user underscore pb.js file for you, okay, or person underscore pb.js file for you. So now what you can do, you can simply import that uh, user pb or person pb, okay, just like we did in Python. So you can simply import that Protobuf class in your React.js application, and while making the API call, okay, you can actually create a Protobuf object using that class. As you can see, we have created a new Protobuf object of new user here, and then you can set the name, set dash like this, and use the serialized binary method of this Protobuf object, and generate the binary data. And now you can actually send this binary data over the API call, and it will reach your Python server. So that's how you actually communicate things. Okay, you communicate the data over the network in a binary format. You serialized using the client Protobuf class and deserialized using the server side Protobuf class. Now, if we compare the JSON representation of a person object, okay, so this is the JSON representation of a person object, and this is the binary representation, Protobuf binary representation of the same person object. So you can see the readability, there is a huge readability difference, right? The second format is not readable at all. Now, let's discuss why is Protobuf better than JSON, okay, and what are the challenges in JSON. So if you see, JSON is a text-based data serialization mechanism, as we already discussed. And because it is text-based, due to its string parsing nature, it is generally slower. Okay, whereas Protobuf serializes the data into binary format, hence it is a smaller size. Okay, and when it comes to speed, Protobuf obviously has a faster serialization, deserialization because JSON is based on string, so generally slow due to string parsing. If we discuss about the schema, Proto works with a strongly typed schema with the .proto files, which we already saw, which we already created. But JSON is schemaless, it is weakly typed. Now for JSON, when we are accessing data across network, we usually will need to use compression, right? Like some gzip compression you must need to have in order to reduce the size of the payload that you are exchanging across the network. But in Protobuf, you don't need to explicitly apply any external compression, because Protobuf data is already in binary format, you don't need any compression. Okay. Now, when it comes to parsing the data from the generated serialized data, it's faster in Protobuf due to its binary nature. So in JSON, it is generally slow because it requires text parsing, right? Before moving to Protobuf, LinkedIn had to set some criteria, okay, because they did not, just switch to Protobuf overnight, right? They had to analyze, they had to evaluate multiple data serialization format that are available in the market, and there's some criteria, okay, that based on what they decided to go for Protobuf. So based on this criteria, they actually evaluated 5-6 mechanisms, they evaluated Protobuf, flat buffers, cap and proto, then smile, then message pack, then CBOR, and cryo, etc. Among all these things, they finally decided to go with Protobuf. Okay. Once they moved to Protobuf, so this is the graph that I have given, which gives the P99 latency comparison. That means 99% of the request. Okay, how it performed with JSON and how it performed with Protobuf, and how the latency metrics turns out to be. This is what they have explained in a graph. And if you see in most of the cases, most of the type of the data which is exchanged across the network, in almost all the cases, they were a Protobuf performed better, right? In terms of latency. So latency using Protobuf is way lesser than the latency which is experienced using JSON, right? And with and for services with large payloads, they noticed up to 60% improvement. Okay. However, do you really need to start using Protobuf for your application? Not really, because in a study done by auth0.com, when Protobuf was used, where the JavaScript was involved, right? Let's say you have client in JavaScript and backend in Python, okay, or client in JavaScript or backend in Java. So in that cases, when they use Protobuf, they could see only, they could see a latency difference of only 4%. So which is insignificant actually. But one significant thing that they noticed was when in a non-JavaScript environment, right? When there is, no component of the application is based on JavaScript. Let's say we have Python and Java interaction, right? Two microservices, let's say, are communicating with each other. it's not always about front end, it's about microservices also. So let's say one microservice you are having in written in Python and one in Java. So when Python and Java are interacting, and when you use JSON, the latency is 6 times more than when you use Protobuf. So basically, in this context, when in a non-JS based environment, Protobuf performs 6 times better than the JSON format. Again, coming back to the question, do you really need to use Protobuf in your application? The short answer is, if you have higher payload size, or you need support for schema validation, because Protobuf is a type strongly coupled schema, right? It's a strongly typed data serialization technique, and you need support for backward compatibility, and obviously and mostly if you are dealing with non-JS based tech stack, right, then Protobuf might be a better option for you than JSON. But if you are comfortable in JSON, and you do not need to worry about bigger payloads, and you need a easy to use and human readable data exchange format, then JSON is the way for you, right? Obviously, as your application grows, if you are a small scale application, then JSON is the hands down the good best approach to go for you. As you scale up, as the number of users increases, as the number of requests increases in your application, the network bandwidth latency becomes a bottleneck. You might need to start thinking about Protobuf. Okay, Protobuf will definitely give you edge over JSON. So that was about today's video, where we discussed about Protobuf and how it is actually efficient when compared to JSON, and how LinkedIn actually achieved 60% latency reduction when they switched from JSON to Protobuf. So I hope you like this video. If you have any doubts about whatever we discussed in this video, put them in the comment section. I'll be sure to answer them. So if you like this video, let's target for 60 likes for this video. Okay, and consider subscribing to my channel. We are targeting to reach 2500 subscribers by the end of this month. So keep supporting. So I create this type of in-depth tech content with real life use cases. So I love to discuss system design based on use cases. So thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.